Hi, I am Katina Horton, love and freedom toxic relationship recovery coach. And today's topic is boundaries, the gateway to running amok or keeping the narcissist out. Once again, today's topic is boundaries, the gateway to running amok or keeping the narcissist out. And before we get into our message, I just want to remind you that we wear a tie so we can make an impact, right? We're wearing a tie so we can make an impact. That means we're analyzing, we're troubleshooting, we're implementing, empowering, right? We're doing all four of those, right? So we can make an impact with the women that are in our homes, in our communities, right? And then all around the world. And how do we do that? We do that by sharing the word of God, right? We don't want to keep it to ourselves. So if you can hit the like button, if there's anything that's said that's of value to you today, okay? And so now, without further ado, I'm going to get right on into the message, okay? So when it comes to boundaries, boundaries are looked at as being taboo to unhealthy individuals, right? And particularly narcissistic individuals, because it means that they cannot use you, abuse you, and do whatever else they want to do to you and through you, like they've been doing before. And you got to keep in mind that when it comes to boundaries and narcissistic individuals, it's like oil and water, they don't mix, right? And so a narcissistic individual hates when another individual sets boundaries, right? It's like, how dare you think that I'm going to follow through with what it is that you've set and I'm going to show you. So they would just keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing to see how far it is that you allow them to go. And this pushing and pushing and pushing is done so that what you can eventually do is get worn down, right? Like kids wear their parents down. They get tired and like, okay, forget it. You can have the candy before dinner. You can have the ice cream or whatever they begging for, cookies or whatever, right? So they're hoping to wear you down, right? And then in essence, when you look back, like they always say, hindsight is 2020. When you look back, you will realize that this individual wanted you to do nothing but make them your God, so to speak, right? They've actually taken the place of God, okay? And so usually the first things that happens when you set boundaries is people start saying, now you didn't change. You weren't like that before, you changed, right? And at the same time, you start thinking to yourself, no, baby, I haven't changed. I actually had a come to Jesus moment, right? I had a big revelation from God, like to do something that I had should have been doing a long time ago, right? It's no like I've changed. It's like I should have been doing, I'm doing now, attempting to do now what it is that I hadn't been doing before, right? And had let things like kind of get lax on, so to speak, right? And so once you set these boundaries, it's going to take some getting used to from the other people who are used to being able to do whatever it is they want to do. They call you and ask for a favor. Can you pick up their child? Can you watch their kid for 3 hours? Can you go to the grocery store for them? Can you pick up something from them while you at the store, then drop it off at their house? Can you cook a dinner for them and they'll pay you for it, all this stuff? They're so used to being able to set whatever it is that they want to have done, letting you know that, and in turn you say, yeah, okay, I'll do it, and then knowing that you're exhausted, knowing you don't feel like doing it, and that you really need to get some rest, knowing that everything in you is saying no, but you just go ahead and say yes to them because you don't want to hear their mouth, or you've got that fear in you. It's fear based, right? So it's like either you don't want to hear their mouth, right? Or it can also be not just not wanting to hear their mouth, but you're thinking, if I say no, what is the relationship going to look like from here? Whether they're going to say to me, if I say no and I exert my boundaries, are they going to stop talking to me? Right. And you get afraid of that, especially if you know that that individual does that to other people. You know that, of course, and that's what's going to happen to you if you say no. So it's a lot that's involved in when you set boundaries. But like I said, the responses are often fear based. And that's usually why individuals don't set boundaries in general, because of fear of what's going to happen as a result of you setting that particular boundary, right? Or two or three or four, however many you set, right? And the bottom line is that they're going to get angry either way it go. That's the bottom line, right? They may never talk to you again. They may not talk to you for anywhere from 1 to 3 months and then start back talking to you again. Either way it goes, it's just something that they're going to have to get used to, right? That is if those individuals want to be in relationship with you, right? And we both know, all of us, I said saying both, we all know when it comes to narcissistic individuals, that's a whole horse of a different color, so to speak, right? As my mother would say. When it comes to those type of individuals, unless you have children with them, the best thing to do is to go no contact. Once you've gotten out of that relationship, there's no sense of trying to hold on. And there are some situations, like if you work alongside them in ministry at the church, and you teach in Sunday school together, you're co-workers, that type of thing. You're in a grocery store, other places. There are some places that you go, you cannot avoid being around narcissists and narcissistic individuals. You just got to do what you have to do, so to speak. But when it comes to romantic, unless you have children with these individuals, it's not a must that you're actually interacting with them on a daily basis. Literally, less is more when it comes to them, right? Because that means that after having interaction with them, then you're going to end up having to detox, literally, right? And so, what we're going to do is talk about the three things that's a must when it comes to boundaries. And there's nothing that's complicated, but these are just three different things that I came up with. And the first one, number one, is no is a complete sentence. Either you're going to stick with the boundaries that you set, right? Or you're going to allow people to run amok in your life, right? You're going to allow these narcissistic people to run amok and cross your emotional, mental, spiritual, physical, and financial well-being. Okay. And then in Matthew 5:37, it says, simply let your yes be yes and your no, no. Anything more comes from the evil one. Okay. I'm going to read that again. It says, simply let your yes be yes and your no, no. Anything more comes from the evil one, right? So a lot of times we'll go back and forth. Yeah, I'll do it. No, I can't do it because I realize I got other obligations. Yeah, I'll do it. And we'll keep going back and forth because we feel bad about exerting boundaries. We're fearful of what the other person might think. Then we think if we need a favor for them, maybe they won't show up. We have all going on the back of our heads, right? But it's the best thing to do is, like, once you get clarity, is to go on forward with it. Because as soon as you start going outside of that realm, then they've got you right where they want you to be, right? Where they can do whatever they want to do, and you're not going to say or do anything about it, right? And so what happens is that, as I mentioned before, the narcissistic individual, they're going to be constantly testing your boundaries, right? And they're going to keep constantly testing it because that's what they live for. That's part of their MO, to just keep pushing and pushing and pushing and going way past the point that you're comfortable with. And that even goes if you're married to them, even. And it comes to being in union, they just keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. So it's like either you have to be able to know when to stop, or you're just going to keep on, like I said, be something like somebody taking a lawnmower or something and just rolling over you back and forth. And it makes me think about Tom and Jerry. It was some type of kind of, I guess I'll say, concoction. It was almost like a lawnmower, a steamroller, where they took it and just kept running across his body till it was flattened. And then his body kept going like this. And that's what happens when it comes to narcissistic individuals. When you don't say no, they just keep running over until you flattened out and you kind of like teetering tottering and just can't even like pop back up into normal, like with the cartoons, right? When once you get deflated, you're gonna be deflated for a while, right? And so they're going to try to do whatever it is that they can do in order to get you to break those boundaries, right? They'll try to triangulate through other people who are close to you to get to you. They're going to use manipulation, right? And all of that stuff. And then once, soon as you decide, nope, I'm not going to be gossiping. I'm not judging. I'm not criticizing anybody. I'm not condemning them. I'm not doing any more backbiting. I'm not instigating situations. I'm not going to be a part of this kind of stuff. Anytime you set those boundaries, whether it's church or in your household, extended family, at work, wherever you at, you can guarantee it's going to be a problem. It is going to be a problem. Either way it go, with them, right? My grandmother used to have a figure of speech when she would say D if you do and D if you don't. And you guys know which words are missing, right? And so let's just, for example, he asked you about going out to eat and having a few drinks, and you already told him no, right? You decided that something was not quite right with the energy he was giving off, right? And how every time he came around and started talking to you in person or either talking to you on the phone, he's clearing his voice. And it's like his voice sounds so cool and smooth. But at the same time, that spiritual energy and emotional energy that's coming up is like almost making you feel like you're drawn to him. And then you're thinking like, this feels euphoric. I feel like I'm under a spell. Like I want to say, yeah, whatever you please. Like, you know, how the monsters in the show that used to come on years ago when I was a kid and they'd be walking around like this, you know, a Frankenstein or something. You want to, you know, act, respond like you're under a spell or something by the time they get through with you. And you know, that's why a lot of times when it comes to narcissistic people, like I said, if it's romantic and once you've left, unless it's something to deal with the children, the best thing is not to even be in communication with them at all. No contact is the best contact. But then if you have to be in contact with them because you still have children, texting and email is better even than voice, because when you hear the voice, then you get sucked back in because your trauma remembers that voice, and then it remembers how you behaved every time you heard that voice, and then you get sucked right back into the love bombing spell, so to speak, right? And so you've already told him no about going out, right? And all of that. Then you hear his voice, and next thing you know, you're texting him, okay, we'll just go out just this once, and then we done then, right? But you already told him you were done. You already done 4 months ago. Well, we'll just go ahead and go out. So then what happened is that you end up going out to eat and having a few drinks, and the next thing you know, you're either back at his apartment or back at the hotel, right? And that's because, and the next thing you know, you trauma bonded over the meal because you share too much. You get back to his place or the hotel, right? Then you soul tied, right? Because you've given your body away, right? Next thing you know, you're in this relationship with him. You're 6 months in. He has devalued you, right? You're in the devaluation phase and you're trying to figure out how you're going to get out. And at the same time, you've been confronting him on a daily basis about his 4 coworkers that he's talking to nonstop, right? And you're feeling uncomfortable about. And you found out by checking his phone, right, that these 4 coworkers are no longer functioning as coworkers anymore. They are his side chicks. And unfortunately, just like you were disarmed at that meal with the meal and drinks, it's the same exact thing that had happened to them, right? He disarmed them. And next thing you know, they're talking about all their insecurities. They're talking about their childhood trauma, what the mama, daddy, granddaddy, grandmama did to them, all of that, their body image issues. Oh, I'm going to do this and that to myself and all of this kind of stuff. And he's gotten pulled in and he's gotten pulled into their story, right? But he's disarmed them, first of all, by pulling him into theirs, into his story, right? Except for what happens is that when he pulled them into his story, they didn't know that they were biting off the fruit, right, of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, so to speak. They didn't know what was behind them getting engulfed into his story, right? So you got these side chicks, these 4 side chicks who are his co-workers, right? And then you are being pit against them, and he's got you guys triangulated and on this hamster wheel of striving, right? So you've gone to that disconnection of the lack cycle of addictions. You got that love, approval, comfort, and knowledge addictions going on in that hamster wheel. He keep telling you, if you change your hair, you know, you dress too conservative. So if you change your clothes, then we'll be good. Those hairstyles, they kind of whack. If you change up your hair, you'll be good. So he's got you spinning and he's got those other 4 coworkers spinning. This was all because your no was not no. As the scriptures say, let the no be no and the yes be yes. Your no was not simply no and done and you're over with and you blocked everything, right? You entertained the idea of him still, you secretly really still like the fact that he's really seeming to show concern for you. And so you don't block him. And so that's what ended up happening, right? And so then they're at the level, when I say they're at the level, I'm talking about the side chicks. They're at the level where they're telling him they need him, texting him. You see what I'm saying? And then you're at the level of feeling like you can't go on without him because you are thinking eventually he's going to fulfill these love and approval addictions I have inside of me, right? But he doesn't. He doesn't fulfill those addictions on the side chick side, and he does not fulfill them on your side. He just got all of you guys, all five of you, on the hamster wheel, right? Of disconnection with this lack cycle, okay? And so then you still trying to figure out how do you disentangle yourself and come out of the situation, right? Because you're being devalued. And then everything that you value, every person, place, thing, or idea that you value rather, is being devalued, right? And then he's starting to compare you to the actresses on TV. Well, she look good, but you don't look as good as her. You look okay, but not as good as her. Yeah, she got this and that on her. He's devaluing you, right? Using the hosts of talk shows on TV. He's devaluing you using actresses on TV. And then it changes over to what? The co-workers, because he's got you guys pitted against each other. And it's just a hot mess situation that you've gotten yourself caught up in. And this was all because you did not let your no be no. You see what I'm saying? And so what happens is that you ignored your gut instinct, your intuition, the Holy Spirit promptings. You allowed yourself to be disarmed. And when that energy didn't feel right, and it already told you no, the energy didn't feel right, right? But because of listening to his voice and being love bombed and pulled in by that emotional and spiritual energy, that's the part that says say yes, right? But the energy that you were feeling was telling you something's off. Don't do it. Don't go to the meal and the wine. Don't do it. You see what I'm saying? But like I said, it's kind of like that song back in the day. The body's here with me. Your mind is on the other side of town. As far as a woman being in a different relationship with another guy because she has ended up being soul tied, right? But when you listen to that voice, all you got to do is be face to face, listen to that voice, hear it on the phone, and all of a sudden, you see what I'm saying? You're right back into that spell all over again, right? You got to run like Joseph did when Pharaoh's wife grabbed a hold of his cloak and she said, sleep with me. He took off running and she was left with his cloak. I guess he said, I'm out of here. I can't do this, right? So you got to let your no be no. Okay, and so we have a situation where the man of God was given specific instructions by God to complete a mission. The man of God prophesied against the altar in Bethel, right? And while he was prophesying there about the priests who were going to have their bones burned on that altar once King Josiah was going to be installed, so to speak, right? All of those bones were going to be burnt there at the altar. And as he's prophesying, as this man of God is prophesying, the altar happens to fall over because he's actually prophesying that as he's also talking about what's going to happen with these bones. So the altar falls over, the ashes fall out and all of that, right? But King Jeroboam is in the process. He's there while the man of God is prophesying. So he tries to grab, literally, he tries to seize the man of God, try to grab him and do something to him. His hand shrivels up and he starts panicking and like, oh, please, 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 pray to God to restore my hand. So the man of God prays to God to have his hand restored, right? To have King Jeroboam's hand restored. You would think that would have taught him a lesson that maybe, as my grandmother would say back in the day when she was living, that he would have straightened up and fly right. Nope. He went right back on sinning and setting up idols and setting up other people who were not Levites to be priests in order to reinforce all of this idolatry in the land, right? This worship of two golden calves, right? With the Israelites. And so, like I said, the situation, it got like buck wild and crazy and ghetto, so to speak, really, really fast. And so what ends up happening is God gave the man of God 3 boundaries that he had to make sure that he paid attention to when he went out there to that altar, okay? The first boundary was no eating food in that place. The second one was no drinking water in that place. And the third one was no going back the way he came, right? It was 3 simple instructions, right? So that means that he could have eaten anywhere, drank anywhere, not in Bethel, right? And he could have gone back whatever way he wanted to go back, but not the way that he came, okay? And so that was, he passed that test in the beginning because King Jeroboam wanted to give him a reward by him going on and restoring King Jeroboam's hand. So he's like, well, come back to my place. I'm going to give you a reward. You know, you can eat and rest yourself and all of that. And the man of God was like, He let his no be no. He repeated what God had told him. I'm not eating food in this place, not drinking water in this place. I'm not going back the way I came. So he went on about his business, right? But then he gets to level 2 of his test, where an old prophet gets wind of everything that's gone down at that altar that's transpired between King Jeroboam and the man of God, his 2 sons. You know how it is. You see something happen, accident or something like that. You get home and you telling your spouse or partner or kids or whatever, let me tell you about what happened and blah, 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 blah. Oh my goodness. So you tell them about what went on during your workday. So that's what his 2 sons did. They saw everything and heard everything. They went back and reported it to their daddy, right? So they reported it to their father. And then he asked them, which way did he go? And, and they let him know which way the man of God went. So he goes and follows this man of God, right? This old prophet has none but the python spirit in them. Remember, the first thing that the python spirit will do is that they will follow you, right? The second thing the python spirit will do will be to act like they got similarities as you, so that they can make a profit out of you, so that they can eventually make a profit out of you by sucking the life out of you, right? And that could be your financial, emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical life, relational as well. 6 of them. It could be any and all of those, right? But they want to suck the life out of you is what that python spirit wants to do. So he followed him, right? And so the thing about it, though, is if you engage with the python spirit, you will get smaller and smaller, okay? Engaging with the python spirit means you are going to get smaller and smaller, because that snake is going to keep wrapping itself around you, and you are going to feel like you're getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And as I've told the story before, I had that to happen as I was in an interview with somebody about possibly collaborating with them on something. And they were trying to have me to help them out. And at the same time, they wanted to try to get me to pay them to help them out. And as I'm sitting there, I was getting smaller and smaller and smaller, literally. I've never experienced anything like that before in my life, and hope to never do it again. Not to that extent, especially. I don't want to be exposed to it, but especially not to that extent. And that shows you just how deeply involved and heavily she was involved in that spirit of divination, right? So this man of God is followed, right, by this old prophet, okay? And I'm going to read to you 1 Kings 13, 18 through the 24th verses. He said to him, I am also a prophet like you. An angel spoke to me by the word of the Lord. Bring him back with you to your house so that he may eat food and drink water. The old prophet deceived him. And the man of God went back with him, ate food in his house, and drank water. While they were sitting at the table, the word of the Lord came to the prophet who had brought him back. And the prophet cried out to the man of God who had come from Judah. This is what the Lord says. Because you rebelled against the Lord's command and did not keep the command that the Lord your God commanded you, but you went back and ate food and drank water in the place that he said to you, do not eat food and do not drink water. Your corpse will never reach the grave of your fathers. That was deep and sad, right? So after he'd eaten food and after he drunk, the old prophet saddled the donkey for the prophet he had brought back. When he left, a lion attacked him along the way and killed him. His corpse was thrown on the road, and the donkey was standing beside it. The lion was standing beside the corpse too. There were men passing by who saw the corpse thrown on the road and the lion standing beside it. And they went and spoke about it in the city where the old prophet lived. When the prophet who had brought him back from his way heard about it, he said, he is the man of God who disobeyed the Lord's command. The Lord has given him to the lion, and it has mauled and killed him, according to the word of the Lord that he spoke to him. Now that is very, very deep, isn't it? And so then what ends up happening is, like I said, he ends up being killed. But this was all because he changed direction, right? God told him one thing, He did not listen to what it was that God told him. Instead, he listened to what this old prophet said, who was deceiving him through that python spirit. This old prophet had a python spirit. He also had the Jezebel spirit, because he went from love bombing with food to devaluing by letting him know, look, you're not going to even be going there with your fathers, right? So that means that his value is gone down, so to speak. And then number three, like, okay, now you about to be discarded. I'll put you on the donkey and send you back, saddle up the donkey, because you about to be killed, right? And that's when Python entered, the viper spirit entered in, when the lion came along and devoured him, right? And attacked him, because vipers always attack by surprise. And that lion represented Satan. You see what I'm saying? And so what happens is that if God changes directions, he will let us know. We don't have to go through somebody else to find out that God changed the word that he originally gave us. This man of God, he wasn't even thinking. He got caught up in what? I'm just like you. I'm a prophet like you are. You know what I'm saying? I'm an author like you. I'm a black author like you are. You see what I'm saying? Well, I'm an author like you. I'm a podcaster like you are. I'm a speaker like you are. I'm a motivational speaker. I'm a relationship coach. We don't know what's going on in that person's heart unless we've tested that energy and tested the spirit and looked at their fruit. And if we don't know them well, we got to seek the Father before we go on and making decisions, right? Because that could be like our last time, literally, like what happened to this man of God. It can be just that serious. We've not only not passed level 3, but then we're done and over with. You see what I'm saying? Whereas God had a destiny planned out for us, we decided we were going to allow that narcissistic individual to go ahead and X our destiny out, destroy our calling, right? We're going to go ahead and listen to them and let them be our God instead of letting God be God. Because guess what? At the end of the day, they are not going to take the punishment for our sins. We are, for not listening to God and thinking it was okay to take the advice of a person and have not been confirmed with God when he already gave him those 3 different boundaries. And the same thing can happen with us, right? So, like I said, that first one was what? Let your no be no. Number 2, real simple and quick. Don't leave the wall. Okay. You're going to have so many toxic distractions when it comes to your calling. And this is going to happen because Satan's goal is to steal, kill, and destroy your identity, joy, calling, and the mission of work of God in general, right? He will use any person, place, thing, or idea that he can to get the job done. And it don't matter who ends up being collateral damage. It's just that he wants to steal, kill, and destroy. And he's going to use whatever methods he can, right? As long as he can stop you. And in the second example, you got Nehemiah and his crew. They're working on rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem. Nehemiah ends up getting a message from a messenger, right? Sent to him in hopes that he was going to come down off the wall and meet with these people and in turn so they can end up killing him, right? And Nehemiah was like, no, y'all not about to get me, in so many words, y'all not about to get me in that mess. I know what you up to, right? He has sense of discernment. He knew it was a setup, right? He knew it was a setup. And so when that didn't work, of course, they didn't just stop at that point. They kept going. Narcissistic people, right? And people who have toxic character, brokenness, and want to see you checked out, and they're being used as tools of Satan, right? To destroy you. They just won't stop at just one time of trying to get you to do something. They're going to try several times. And they're also going to get their flying monkeys to participate in the process, right? And so that's what happened with Nehemiah. These were like, they were lying. They were trying to gaslight him. Not trying, they were gaslighting him via messages sent to him via messenger. They were lying. It was all kind of stuff. They were hiring false prophets. It was just to be believed. You see what I'm saying? They were ruthless, narcissistic, and intent on destroying Nehemiah's calling. I just want to read in scripture just to give you an idea of just how crazy it got with them. It was, like I said, it was unbelievable. And I'm reading from Nehemiah 6, okay? When Sanballat, Tobiah, Geshem the Arab, and the rest of our enemies heard that I had rebuilt the wall and that there was no gap left in it, though at that time I had not installed the doors in the city gates, Sanballat and Geshem sent me a message. Come, let's meet together in the villages of the Ono Valley. They were planning to harm me. So I sent messages to them saying, I'm doing an important work and cannot come down. Why should the work cease while I leave it and go down to you? 4 times they sent me the same proposal and I gave them the same reply. Sambala sent me this same message a 5th time by his aide who had an open letter in his hand. Now, this is with the gaslighting. And it was written, "It is reported among the nations, and Geshem agrees that you and the Jews plan to rebel. This is the reason you're building a wall. According to the recent reports, you are to become their king and have even set up the prophets in Jerusalem to proclaim on your behalf, there is a king in Judah. These rumors will be heard by the king. So come, let's confer together." Then I replied to him, "There is nothing to these rumors you're spreading. You're inventing them in your own mind, for they were all trying to intimidate us, saying they will drop their hands from their work and it will never be finished. But now, my God, strengthen my hands." So he knew that they were up to no good. He told them they were up to no good, that they had just made all this mess up in their heads. And it's like, I'm still not coming down off this wall. And then he prayed to God for strength because he knew that once somebody has sent you something like that, when you get something that's involving gaslighting and some tactics that's going on, he knew that their fear could possibly involve their strength. Because when your stress and trauma responses kick in, right, and that fight or flight mode kicks in, and then your whole system your nervous system goes out of whack. Your amygdala is like, well, what's going on? And it was this type of situation with Nehemiah. That's why he prayed, "Lord, strengthen my hands," because he's like, it's not like he didn't try to act like he wasn't a human being, right? He knew what was probably going to happen, that fear was going to take over. And then once fear takes over, you can't hardly get anything done because you keep thinking they after me. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? But that still wasn't even enough. You think that those 5 times would have been enough. They came at him several more times. And one of those times is they hired a false prophet to come and try to get Nehemiah to go into the house of God and tell Nehemiah, they're going to kill you, so let's run in the house of God. Nehemiah said, well, what does somebody like me look like running in the house of God? Because remember now, when it came to the house of God, that was a place where the priest could go in. Not anybody could just go in the house of God and think they were okay. So they were basically trying to set him up to run in there, possibly kill him, but then at the same time go and actually talk about him and look at him and discredit him. Look at him, some just regular person just gonna go in the house of God like that. So it was all a setup. And a lot of times what happens is you always have, as I mentioned before, there's always a ringleader, a ring of the pack, so to speak, right? And then they've got their flying monkeys telling them everything to do. They do the least amount of work. You see what I'm saying? They might even tell them what to put in the message, or they might write the message up, the ringleader, but they're giving all of the orders for everybody else to get all of the work done, while they sit back and they kind of look like a movie director. That scene didn't go so well. Let me try this and that and the other. I'll move these different triangles around. That scene was perfect. So I'm going to take that and move that there. And I'll work on these 5 triangles over here. They're always up to something, right? And they're always trying to move people, places, things, and ideas around to suit their purposes. It was no different here with Nehemiah. Nehemiah was like, I'm doing a good work. I can't come down. He didn't even try to get into this whole big old thing with them. But it just goes to show how far people will go to destroy you. Not only you, but destroy your purpose, right? Destroy your calling so you cannot make it to your destiny, right? So you can come down off that wall. You won't have the mission of God completed, right? But he has sense. He was just like, I'm not getting into it with you guys with this. And the funny thing to me was that they wanted him to meet up with them in the valley of Oh No, the valley / pain of Oh No. And that was right there. Just the name of the place, that sounds like a oh no. He's just like, I'm not coming off this wall, right? And just like with you in a situation where people are trying to get you to come down from the wall, and you got to have those reserves like Nehemiah has, like, I'm doing a good work. I cannot come down. You don't even need to go into, I know y'all gaslighting me. I know y'all doing this. I'm doing a good work and I cannot come down, right? And remember, though, people with narcissistic spirits running through them, it's not just going to be a one and done thing. I hate to be the deliverer of bad news, but I also got to be not honest with you and just keep it real. It's not going to be a one and done thing. They're going to try several times to see if they can break you, right? A lot of times, as I've mentioned before, have mentioned about this old prophet, narcissistic individuals usually have the viper going on in them, right? Where they attack, they sit and they use the ambush foraging, just like the real viper snakes do. and then they surprise attack you, right? And leaving your whole nervous system, right? That whole emotional and spiritual system, they leave you in a frozen trauma state, right? Okay, and all that poison is going through from all of their families, trauma and drama, and entire history, shame, insecurity, arrogance, toxic jealousy, racism, legalism, the Holy Spirit box, all of that they're infusing inside of you from them. And not just from that one person that's doing it, but from the whole group. And they're using you as a poison container for it, right? So narcissistic individuals, they usually have that viper spirit, right? And then they have that python that we talked about, the old prophet had, right? Where they follow you and, oh, we got something in common, right? And then they devour you. They suck the life out of you in every area, right? And then they also have that Jezebel slash narcissistic spirit, which they go through that cycle, love bombing, devaluation, and discard, right? And so, like I said, you just got to be careful because they're not going to stop at one time. They're going to keep doing what they did to Nehemiah. They're going to keep on. They figure they're going to wear you down. You're going to give in. And, then they're going to destroy your calling. You and the calling with it. Number 3, focus on the truth. Adam and Eve were given free reign to do whatever they want to do in the Garden of Eden. Everything went wrong when they allowed Satan to get in their heads. Doubt the sufficiency of God's love for them. Doubt the sufficiency of God being enough, right? And then in turn to doubt what they themselves possessed, right? Therefore, he gave Eve the limiting belief that God's love is not enough. And then it's like, okay, so, and if God's love is not enough, then God is not enough. Okay, and so then if God is not enough, then that means what? You're not enough, right? All of this from helping Eve to believe that lie that love was restrictive, right? And that she was missing out something, like, baby, you a manufacturer reject. That's basically what he got in her head, got her to believe, right? And this was all because somebody came along, right, and started asking questions about boundaries. Think about it. The first thing that came out of that snake's mouth, he's asking her about what it was that God said. Always have a huge light bulb, a super big red stop sign, right? And flag going up. When somebody comes to you, you don't know them. You met them for the first time and they start asking you about your boundaries. That's a red flag. And all of a sudden, that's when it should go up like, okay, this is really strange. You're not asking me about what I do. You're not possibly asking me about, do I have kids? You're not possibly asking me about the work of the Lord, my calling. You're asking me about my boundaries as soon as you meet me. And that's the first thing that we're talking about. Something is wrong. You see what I'm saying? Something is wrong. And I'm going to tell you why. What happens is, as soon as they start taking your focus off of the truth, right? As soon as they start taking your focus off of that, then that means that your focus is going to be on to what it is they're saying, right? That means you're going to get tunnel vision, right? You're going to start focusing on what it is you can't do. As soon as they start asking you about boundaries right off the back, when you meet somebody, that means that your vision changes, right? All of a sudden, you don't have the beautiful view you had at first, which shows everything that you got access to, except for those 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5 things, but you got access to all of this. But as soon as they start talking, right, Satan working through them, all of a sudden, you're going to get tunnel vision and you're only going to hear what it is you can't do. And then you start your clarity on having truth there in front of you for your view. That's going to start getting blurrier and blurrier. You're going to be like, I think I'd rather have tunnel vision instead of having the vision where truth is the focus, right? Whenever boundaries is the focus, you're going to put yourself imprison yourself in bondage unknowingly, right? Because as soon as you focus on boundaries, that means that you are going to focus on bondage that does not even exist. And it's going to happen with other people. So instead of looking at boundaries as protection, you're going to see boundaries as bondage, lack of freedom, and imprisonment, right? And you're going to start thinking, I got to get out of here. And so where clarity once existed, now confusion has set in. And you know that God is not the author of chaos and confusion, right? So let's say, for instance, you've been in a healthy relationship, right? You've been in a healthy relationship for a while. You got all your healing done and everything after leaving this this narcissist and going through that narcissistic abuse cycle, when you with him, you've healed up, you're whole, and you've moved on. You're in a healthy relationship, right? But then you got a friend who has no boundaries at all, right? And she's telling you about how those few boundaries that you and the partner, that the person that you're dating, right? She's talking to you about those boundaries and trying to get you to think like, I don't know why y'all got those boundaries set. That's too much. And then you start letting it get in your head, right? They start changing your view, right? Because the focus is going so much on the boundaries, except for the truth of it. It's all these different things you can do, but you both have set those boundaries in place, right? To keep you where you are with God. And so you don't go past the point. I don't know why y'all meeting up at the movie theater with other couples. I don't know why y'all going out to dinner and other church functions and other public places together. Just go to his house or your house, right? So they start you thinking about the different boundaries, just those few boundaries that's been set, right? And then all of a sudden you start thinking, man, I don't feel free, right? I got to get out of this. But mind you, this individual has not done their self-work, right? You're not judging. This is just the truth. And you should know the truth, and the truth will set you free, right? They've not done their self-work. And so because they've not done the self-work, after they've left from the narcissistic individual that they were in, which was in their marriage, every man that they've dated after that, all of the 8 to 10 men they've dated have been narcissistic. But they are telling you about the boundaries that you and your partner have in this healthy relationship, right? They're trying to get you to take their advice. And as soon as you take it, like I said, then it shifts from you having truth as your vision to being tunnel vision of, wow, look at what I'm bound by. And that's what Satan did to Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. They had free reign of that garden, right? They would work. Adam was working and tilling it, right? They could do whatever he was. God allowed him to even name the animals, and God didn't even say, this is what you're going to name them. He let Adam, basically co-reign with him, so to speak, right? And dominate. And him and Eve were fine. They just had those few boundaries, right? But as soon as Satan got in their head and first began asking about boundaries, that's where it all went wrong, right? And once again, like I said, we cannot let other people allow them to influence what we know that's true, right? First of all, what's true about God. Second of all, what's true about ourselves, right? And then thirdly, what's true about other people, right? And the situation at large. As I said before, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. You are enough. You don't have to let your boundaries go out the door in order to prove, right, that you can satisfy somebody else's sick, twisted agenda for your life and your calling that God has placed on your life, okay? Reclaim your power, soul, and identity. And then you also want to reclaim the power, soul, and identity of your calling. Don't forget, we wear ties so we can make an impact. We're analyzing, troubleshooting, implementing, empowering, and impacting. So if there's anything of value that you've heard in this message, if you could hit the like button, if you can share it with a friend, a sister, a brother in Christ, etc. Grab your keys to the kingdom and get your inheritance. Love you, ladies. And until next time, be eternally blessed. Bye-bye.